Welcome into the Invest Well Show. I'm your host, Michael Wall. Listen, we have a wonderful guest today, but before I introduce her, we're going to talk about health and why you need to invest in it. Listen, you've heard of the MAHA movement. It's a big deal today. People are in a place where they're starting to wake up with all of the things that are happening, all of the negative things, the bad things, the junk that we've been putting in our bodies, and there's a lot of change happening. Don't miss the show. We're going to talk about things on the show today that are going to help you really live a better and more fulfilled, healthy life. So our guest today is Susan Malzoni.
Yeah.
I said it right.
You did.
She's joining us here. She's been involved in the MAHA movement. You have a company that we're going to talk about a little bit as well that you're really passionate about. You just came from the Big Dog Ranch and all of the things that you're involved in rescuing pets and making sure that there's health along the way in all aspects of life. So first off, thanks for taking a minute and joining us.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit, let's start maybe with your journey. So you're in a place where this health movement is a big part of your life. Has it always been that way?
It has. Actually, I grew up in a household where my mother was a nutritionist, and she made it a point that we ate very healthy at home. You know, she made her own bread. We took supplements since I can remember. I've never not taken supplements. I remember coming home from school and having a big tablespoon of cod liver oil, which was like we all dreaded.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about it. Cod liver oil?
Cod liver oil back then. You know, now you just take an omega-3 pill.
Oh, okay,
now,
there you go. Yeah.
But she would have this big jug of cod liver oil, and we'd all have to take a tablespoon, plug our nose. It was horrible. She juiced, you know, we had fresh carrot juice. So it's kind of been instilled in me since early. Not all of my siblings followed that same path. Some of them rebelled. I, however, did follow that. So I've been on this track for a long time.
Wow. And so what do you think was the kind of impetus or beginnings for her? Was it just kind of just part of her culture or part of her
I
family?
don't know if it's part of her culture. She just took an interest in health, and she had 5 kids.
Wow.
And I guess keeping them healthy was high on the top on her priority list because she didn't want them at home. She wanted them to go to school. So she's like, I want to keep them healthy. So we also lived in Wisconsin where, you know, people got sick a lot. It was cold. And so she just became a passion of hers, actually. And, you know, she went to school for that. So kind of just got instilled in me early on the importance of, you know, taking control of your health.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She never gave attention to us either when we did get sick, by the way.
Okay. She didn't make a big deal of it.
She didn't. And
you're sick, honey.
Yeah,
None
nothing.
of that. Yeah.
In fact, she treated you poorly when you were sick.
Yeah.
So she said, I'm not giving energy to this. So you're going to decide how long you want to sit, you know, in your room. And it was really like, we just didn't give it energy. We gave energy to let's get better, not let me just woe in my sorrow and my sore throat or whatever it is. So she really taught that to me as well, is like, don't give in to that and, you know, stay in the right mindset.
You know, it's funny. There's, you know, the book of the Bible, Job. So there's a verse in there that talks about what I feared has come to pass. And it's almost like this idea of our minds are so powerful in what we do, how we heal our bodies, how we don't heal our bodies, obviously what we take, the nutrients we take. So that really started you on this journey in a lot of ways. And then as you became an adult and had the ability to make your own decisions, was that just something you said, I'm just going to continue? Did you kind of veer for a little while? Like, what did that look like for you?
I think I veered probably in my, you know, later teens, early 20 years. But then I got married early. I had kids early. And I was very worried that my kids weren't going to be healthy. I was living in South America at the time, and I didn't really want to vaccinate them. And there were so many strange.
That was required there?
It wasn't
there. How did that?
You know, in going into school, they asked for that, but it wasn't like here. I was never vaccinated as a child. My mother never vaccinated me. And when I moved to South America and I learned I was pregnant, I said to the doctor, I've never had a vaccine. And so they were all like, you know, panic because if you got yellow fever while you're pregnant, it could, you know, cause damage to a child. So they tested my titers, you know, they did a blood test to see if I had immunity, and it showed that I had immunity to everything. So basically, you know, what my mother said, God gave you an immune system.
Yeah.
And why are we tampering with it?
Yeah.
Because obviously I was exposed to all those illnesses, and I just, you know, I acquired my antibodies. So I never had to get vaccinated.
So you were in a place where you're living in South America. You're kind of an outcast in some regards by the medical system, right?
For sure.
Because you're healthy.
Right.
And it's kind of an anomaly. And so now your kids, they're doing, and you're kind of continuing the process. Did you juice and do all that with the kids when you were young too?
Oh yeah. They are on the same page as I am. You know, my youngest.
Yeah.
They're all extremely healthy, thank God. But yeah, they've eaten healthy. I've I've given them a couple vaccines that they needed to for school. But, all in all, I did not follow any of the norms that standard medicine
Well, it's
tries to push on
It's
you.
become, we talked about this off show a little bit, but Susan, it's interesting, like the whole culture, the shift that used to be, years ago. I mean, I don't know how far we got to go back in America, 20, 30, 40 years where, a lot of women stayed home and men worked and kind of traditional roles, if you will. Not that there's anything wrong with women having jobs and being, employment, if you will, but they were literally took on the responsibility of taking care of their family.
Right.
And they cooked.
Like my mother did.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of gone by the wayside in many, many ways.
Sadly.
What do you think has been really the big impacts on society as a whole?
Well, we're seeing the results of that with kids who've had little parenting, little to no parenting, actually. Television and media has been their source of parenting, watching TV and interacting with maybe things they shouldn't interact with because they just don't have any guidance from their parents. It's a sad reality, and I was a working mother, so I'm speaking for myself, and in a bit of regret, but all in all, my kids were always well taken care of by other people. They were not allowed to watch TV 6 hours a day, and thankfully they came through it all right. But it's just right now, I think we're at a point in life where we're seeing the consequences of this lack of parenting.
And I think a little bit of a crossroads.
A bit, yes.
Would you, kind of like, hey, here's the truth. Here's what's happening. Here's where we can go. And I think this is important. And you've really kind of taken the mantle in a lot of ways to be involved. Obviously, again, your company we'll talk about in a minute, which is all about health, but getting involved in the health space, really being involved in we'll call it the MAHA movement now that everybody's talking about Make America Healthy Again. How did you decide to kind of be, or where did organically you connect? How did that all come about for you to kind of integrate and be involved?
With the MAHA organization?
Yeah.
Well, my friendship with Bobby Kennedy.
Okay.
That stems back years in California. I met him there, and I actually did fundraisers for him for the Children's Health Defense, which he was the head of at that time. And so when we were in California, and especially during COVID, I would host these large events at my home, which, everyone's like, my neighbors thought I was crazy, but, I knew all about COVID, and we all did. This group of people, we weren't buying into it. So, not that it didn't exist, it did, but we knew the risks.
Well, when they start trying to offer you cheeseburgers to take the shot,
French fries, yeah,
kind of like,
or marijuana.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh, in New York.
No.
Oh, yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I didn't hear about that.
Oh, yeah. Joints. Mm-hmm.
Offering you marijuana to take the shot.
Yes.
I did not know that. I knew about the cheeseburgers and fries, but not the, wow.
There's been a lot. There was so much wrong with that whole situation. And, a lot of people, in fairness, didn't know. And some people were afraid. Some leaders were afraid and didn't want to have catastrophe. We were lucky enough. I mean, I was living in California, so I saw the polar opposites, California, and I saw, Florida, which I've always had ties to Florida. And I thought, wow, this is the same illness, treated completely different in two different states. One is thriving. Florida was thriving. Meanwhile, California was shut down. And, and it wasn't only that, which made me move back to Florida. It was how people reacted, how my neighbors and my peers, who I thought were my friends, how they shamed me, how they didn't want to sit at a table with me. My friends from New York, I have a very good friend that I could not come to her house. She would not go to dinner with me. And if she did, I had to sit at the far end, and including my own husband's family.
Really?
I could not tell them I wasn't vaccinated because they wouldn't even let me in their house.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really the push, though, is to get people in a lot of ways to kind of self-identify and then selectively be like, well, we can't come. All of these images and people going in to visit parents and grandparents in homes that are wearing all, it's just horrible.
It was. So I think, so going back to that, I was doing events for Bobby at the time, and we kind of all knew.
So at that time, he was already talking about this is a sham.
He had been for a long time.
Yeah.
Children's Health Defense had a lot of evidence about some of the dangers of over-vaccination, or at least not giving parents consent. Like, they should have informed consent of what they're injecting into their child and potential consequences, and let them make the decision. That should not be a decision mandated by the government, by anyone. These are your children. And I think that was just really the point he was trying to make, is educate yourself. If you choose to do it, then you should do it. But if not, you should have that choice. I mean, everyone should have a choice. This is your sovereign body. Why should you be and then it just amplified during COVID. It got crazy.
In many different ways.
In many ways.
You probably know Sean Foyt, the lettuce worship movement. So we were kind of involved financially initially with some of what he did as he kind of launched that.
Right.
On the bridge, and we're going to have worship open throughout the country. I mean, it really affected all parts of life. It wasn't just daily life. It was everything that we were doing.
Yeah, spiritual life. I mean, I just started to see my neighbors and my peers act in a way that I thought, wow, are they ever going to come back from this?
Yeah.
Like, I really questioned it.
It was social shaming.
It was social shaming. But if you were in California or New York, you saw it on another level. Florida, you didn't see it as much. That's why I spent a lot of time during that period here in Florida and looking for houses, because I was desperate to get out. But
do you think, on that note, do you think, Susan, people in California living there, obviously you spent a lot of time in Florida, but do you think people in California themselves, they really believed it, or did they just conform?
I think a bit of both. I think the whole fear tactic was well thought out. It felt, every commercial on TV had something to do with it. And if you didn't have a really strong mind and you didn't see things in a clear way, which a lot of people just follow what I said, they follow the government, they follow what their doctors say. You didn't have a really strong constitution of being, you just conformed. And, you saw people driving around their cars with masks on by themselves. I saw it every day. My neighbors, I'd be in my neighborhood and I see my neighbor driving by. I'm thinking, wow, he's like the CEO of this huge company and he's driving around with a mask on by himself in the car.
Wow. I mean, massive psychological manipulation.
Warfare.
Yeah, it was warfare.
It was.
And it's amazing to me because there was just, it almost seemed like this idea of like just sound mind, logical thinking. They remember the old saying, there's nothing more uncommon than common sense, right? Kind of just went out the window.
Completely.
And it's like, how in the world would you think? And that's one of the things that was so interesting to me. Like when you talk about vaccines, or we need to vaccinate so that way we can protect against XYZ. And I'm thinking to myself, if the vaccines worked, why are they worried about it? What's the point of getting them if they actually worked?
Well, that was my point. Always, I'd say, do you realize that this is not preventing infection? It never has. It was not designed to do that. It's giving you a little bit of an immunity so you don't have such a bad reaction. But if you're a healthy person and don't have any of these lists of risk factors, why are you doing it?
Right.
There's no reason to. And then another booster and another booster and another booster. It's just, I tried to explain that to people, but it was like blank.
Right.
Blank.
They didn't get it.
They didn't, and they didn't want to. They just want to feel safe, which is, an innate desire of everyone. They just want to feel safe. And that was a time where no one felt safe. I remember that feeling. It was horrible.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, the only safe booster that I had was when I was younger because I needed a seat to lift me up so I could a booster seat.
Good one.
Actually eat my food, which is interesting. So you joined the MAHA, or really kind of got involved in a lot of...
Well, it wasn't MAHA at the time. It was just, Bobby Kennedy's health movement.
Yeah.
And
he's been passionate for a long time, though.
He has been for years.
Which I think tells a lot.
Well, you hear his voice. He has that disorder. And, we're not sure if it's from a flu vaccine he got. So he did a deep dive into that until he looked into vaccines and side effects of vaccines. And that happened to be one of them, that the issue he has. So... and then a lot of people put two and two together in this group that we formed these groups all around the United States, and many of them were vaccine injured or their children were. Mary Holland, who runs Children's Health Defense right now, she's an attorney, and she was actually running Bobby's campaign when he was running. Her son was vaccine injured, and he's, severely disabled to this day. And there's many, many, many people, and no one talks about that.
No, they don't.
So, health has to be looked at, as you said, from an individual perspective. You can't just say unilaterally, everyone needs to get this vaccine. Or just like a child should not all get 5 vaccines in once or 3 in one. Not all people and children can handle that. It can overwhelm their immune system and cause all sorts of issues. They say there's no data to prove that autism comes from it, but there's strong indication that could influence that. So, I mean, everyone's different. And I think if I was running or involved really, in policy right now, and I know Bobby will probably do this, but I think every child should be tested when they're born to see what genetic mutations they have, because that can dictate what they can and what they should not be taking.
Well, it's getting to the source.
Right.
And that's really,
you get a blueprint when you're born.
Right.
That's what everyone should have.
That's
so
right.
So a parent knows, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I should do. Maybe I shouldn't do like 3-in-1 vaccine. Maybe I should split it, spread it out, or maybe I don't have to only do the ones that are all, super necessary. But you should have that blueprint, and that should be offered to every baby born in this country. It costs like, I don't know, $50. It's a mouth swab. I learned
easy
later,
to find.
Yeah, I learned later in life, I think it was in my early 40s, that I have a double mutation of my MTHFR gene. And that makes you have all sorts of issues. You can't, absorb vitamin Bs properly. You, like caffeine. I can't drink a lot of caffeine. It stays in my system a lot longer. I don't detoxify easily. And if I were to get vaccines, I'd probably not be here right now.
Really affect you.
Yeah, it would have affected
in a negative
me.
way. You know what's amazing to me, Susan, is like people understand logically. Like if you're going to build, a house, a skyscraper, whatever, you're going to have a blueprint, right? You're not just going to randomly come in and be like, you know what, let me order 52 showers and tubs or whatever. I mean, kidding, of course, something. And there's only 10 bathrooms. Like that wouldn't make any. There's a blueprint, so we know exactly what we're building, exactly what we need, exactly all of the contractors are aware. And yet here we are with this multi-infinity as far as valued body that God gave to us.
All right.
And there's a blueprint with it.
Yeah.
And we're not taking advantage of the tools at hand. I think that's common sense.
It is. We have so many diagnostic, testing and things that we can actually know everything before we have it. Like I just did a whole protocol. I mean, I'll talk about what I think we're going to talk about this later, but what people are doing now. And there's so much technology available to know your current status of health. I just did a whole evaluation at Human Longevity in San Diego. There's many centers around the United States that does it, but that happened to be the first one that really made it a thing. I think they used to call it, an executive evaluation. I don't remember. It cost a lot of money. Now they've actually scaled it so it's accessible to people. So I spent a day there at Human Longevity.
What do they do?
Well, they start out doing a whole blood.
We have an office out there, so I'm probably have to go there and do it.
You should go, definitely. Yeah. They do a blood panel. First thing, you have to come in fasting. Full blood panel.
Just 24-hour fasting or?
No, it's not even. It's 12 hours.
Oh, 12 hours. Okay.
So if you eat at 10 o'clock or you eat at 8 o'clock, just don't eat until 8 the next day or until after you get your blood drawn. So they draw your blood early in the morning. Then they serve you a really nice breakfast. They give you a little suite for the day in their facility. You have a very nice breakfast. Then they start with all the scans. You do full body MRI with the Tesla 3, like the latest technology. They'll do a specific brain scan, specific heart scan. They'll do bone density. They'll do, I'm trying to remember all the scans. There were so many of them. But it's a 6-hour day. But what you get from that, the information, 3 weeks later, they call you, the doctor calls you, or you can go in and you have a Zoom call with all your results. And they show you, every organ of your body. If there's any indication of a potential problem, I mean, you have the advantage.
Wow.
Why wait until you actually have an illness? I mean, this country is so confused about health and how we manage it. It should be preventive. It should not be once you're sick.
It's not a profit center.
True.
That's really the challenge.
Right.
It's we've created a culture wrapped around profit.
Yeah.
And that's what's been exalted is the dollar instead of, living a healthy life.
Right.
With
Well,
real
living
purpose.
a healthy life and also knowing where you stand. Like I was given a great clean bill of health. They actually tell you the size of your hippocampus, which I didn't know dictates so many things in life.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a part of your brain.
Okay.
Actually, the part of your brain that helps you deal with stress.
Huh.
And memory.
So is the size determined on the level of stress or what?
No, it's determined on how you handle it, how well you can handle it.
Wow.
So they give you a percentile. I'm 98 percentile.
Wow.
Which I'm top of class. So it's
Excuse me,
my bragging rights for the next couple of months. Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So 98% of, the population is less than my size of hippocampus. So
yeah.
that was actually really interesting. I would never have known that.
What is the word again?
Hippocampus.
Hippocampus.
Hippocampus. Yeah.
So you're gonna have a hat's like I got a big hippo.
I got a big exactly. My claim to fame.
Yeah,
my claim
yeah.
to fame. But I guess a lot of like fierce leaders and like people went to battle. People who know how to deal with high stress environments there's a correlation between that and having a large hippocampus.
So is there a if you're not as big in that area, so to speak, can you develop it, or how does that work?
No, you can't.
You just learn how to
You're born with it.
You learn how to navigate.
You learn how to navigate and just be aware of it, that maybe you're more susceptible to stressful situations. Maybe you need to learn more coping skills than others.
Okay.
Maybe you need to do some kind of biofeedback or other things. And so these are all things that we have the technology to know what we're dealing with. Why not set a plan in place versus finding, a 16-year-old kid who's like suicidal or, that could all have been prevented with knowing if they are low in magnesium or certain other, nutritional elements that could make their hormones out of whack and cause depression or anxiety. There's so many quick fixes. I was telling earlier to someone that, I've seen people where we've gotten their levels up of certain minerals and it's like a light switch went on. They're like, wow, I never felt like this. I didn't even know I could feel like this.
They're clear. Yeah.
Thinking clearly.
Yeah.
When they never had that.
I noticed that even with just fasting.
Oh, yeah.
As an example, I've been really listening to lately a lot of Gary Brecka's stuff. And maybe it's good or maybe it's all bad or maybe it's half and half. I don't know. But the bottom line is like, you know what, I'm going to try some fasting.
Good.
Which I did. And I really noticed a significant difference, quite honestly. Yeah.
I think it's a little different for men than women. Women have to be a little careful with fasting too long because it can throw hormones out of whack. And, hormones dictate a lot of our behavior. And so I think if we don't have the right nutrients, the right minerals in our body and, from fasting long periods of time, it can deplete women a little bit more. It can kind of alter things. But I'm a big proponent of fasting. I fast every day.
So you do the 6-hour deal in San Diego. Then after that, you kind of really...
So then they call you about 3 weeks later and do a full, rundown of everything. They show you the scans of your brain, your heart. I had 0 calcium in my heart. They give you scales. I had 0. And then my liver, she said, oh my gosh, you have a liver of like a child. She goes, you must not drink. And I said, no, I actually do.
Wow.
But I think I just detox daily. I do all my supplements and my green juice. I have a whole protocol of stuff. And it's just worked. I mean, obviously she's like, whatever you're doing, do not change one thing. She's like, I've honestly never seen, I'm 55. I've never seen a 55-year-old liver like this, ever.
Wow.
And I have wine and it's not like I restrict myself really on anything. I'm not a vegan. I don't do any kind of, strict diets. I do a little bit of everything. Certain things I don't eat just because I don't like them and I know they're not good for me. But so whatever I'm doing to detox is definitely working.
I love that. I mean, listen, when you think about being healthy, I think it really takes intentionality. You can't accidentally move into it, right?
Right.
And so it's like anything else in life, whether it's success in business or success in a relationship or success in health, it takes intentionality. And I think a lot of times we talked a little bit earlier about it, but we're so bombarded with all of the information and all this stuff and just kind of scrolling and all the things that's in front of our face today. Part of this process, I think, is unplugging to actually say, what are we going to do? And even as people watch this, as you watch this show and think about some of these ideas, it's the idea of, okay, it might sound great to do. Yes, I'm going to take some of these steps, but you really got to take effort in your own life to say, practically, let me take account and see how it can actually improve.
Well, it's discipline. It all comes down to discipline.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have to be super disciplined in the beginning. Once you start seeing benefits, you will want to be more disciplined because you see, oh, wow, that little change in my routine made a huge difference. Let me see if I try this thing and how that works out. I tell everybody just take baby steps. Just like try one new thing, try walking 15 minutes a day or try taking this one supplement or try meditating. Meditation is a powerful thing for your mind, or praying.
Yeah.
Some people pray, some people meditate. To me, it's all in the same. It's centering yourself, putting yourself in God's hands or the universe and just, like letting your whole nervous system reset, basically. That's what I do.
Well, I think that's really cool. And one of the things I want to share before we transition to Vitamina, am I saying it right?
Yes.
It's an interesting name. You're going to love this, by the way, when you hear about it. But I remember Zig Ziglar used to say, which I was a fan of. By the way, I sold bookstore to her back in the day, and that's how I started listening to Zig. But he said, when you talked about kind of centering yourself, he said, there's 3 things I know with certainty. Number 1, there is a God. Number 2, it ain't me. And number 3, it ain't you either.
Right.
It's just this idea of taking the pressure off of ourselves.
Right.
I think we're in a culture today where we feel so much responsibility and pressure for success or appearance or trying to be something that we're not. We've kind of created a culture like that we just kind of take the scales off and kind of get comfortable with ourselves. And that takes time and silence. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. You've been in marketing, now you're in the health field. Obviously, the MAHA movement has continued to be a part of connecting with Bobby in the past, but now that it's mainstream and he's where he is politically, it's a beautiful thing.
So exciting.
Seeing a lot of things happening.
It's the most exciting time in my life, for sure.
It's amazing.
To see all the changes are happening and all the things that are going to hopefully happen, without too much obstacle. But, I was talking earlier about, his first steps were like taking fluoride out of the water and changing the school lunch menus. He's hired this amazing chef to create lunch menus with like real food for kids. That's incredible. And he has a million plans.
You talked off air, and I want to make sure we don't miss this. Talking about in France.
Right, yeah.
Real quick, that happens all the time, right?
So I lived in France, I had my youngest son in school in France. So, every day he went to public school in Paris, and every day he'd have a hot lunch prepared. It was a salad, meat, potatoes, whatever it meant, but it was on a plate. It was like a proper meal. And then they had a actual glass in front of all the kids' places and pitchers of water. And, they had a really healthy meal prepared by chefs in the back every single day.
And it's a public school.
It's a public school funded by the government.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that? Why do we have to spend the same amount of money probably on ultra processed food? That does not make any sense to me. And it's feeding in, it's creating a culture of sick kids who can't concentrate. Then they're diagnosed with ADHD, which the percentile of that is crazy in this country. In other countries, they don't even know what that is. What is that? That's just your kid's hyper.
AD what? Yeah.
Your what? Your kid's just active.
Yeah.
He's like really happy.
Well, and then you double that with the fact that a lot of kids now, they come home and they're not outside playing.
Exactly.
They're sitting there. They're plugged in. They got their mics. They're communicating, and they're getting all this stimulation, but they're not moving their bodies.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a big disconnect, and it can happen here. The changes are happening. I've lived in other countries and I've seen what other countries do. And there's no reason that the most advanced, financially sound country in the world has not been able to achieve that. And we have such a sick nation. Why we spend more money in this country on healthcare and have the worst outcomes? How is that possible?
At some point in time, you got to take a look at the tail of the tape and say, wait a minute, this is not working.
Wrong.
Yeah, maybe there's some abuse and fraud. No, I'm just is there money being missed somewhere? It's being sent? Yeah, possibly. So taking fluoride out of the water, I think that's a bit. Why do you think they even put that in the first place? What do you think the thinking is there?
I remember I read this. Now I can't remember what the thought process was behind that, but probably good intentions started out, but no one really knew the long-term effects of that neurologically. It's a neurotoxin, and we're drinking that. We're giving that, to our babies in their milk, and water. You're mixing powder and fluoride water and giving that to children. That's a neurotoxin. There's no reason to have fluoride in the water. We can do fluoride treatments on our teeth when we go to the dentist if needed, but there's no reason that should be in our water system.
Daily use.
Yeah, daily use.
Yeah.
Bobby's, done a lot of research on that, and he knew that was not something he wanted in this country, and so now it's coming out, which is great.
What do you think about now where we are, as he just mentioned about the recommended with the COVID shot?
Yeah, it's great news. Why should it be recommended to kids who are not in the highest risk of infection or death? Why should they be subjected to that? We know now, after how many years of giving the vaccine, that it can have adverse effects, a lot of them. So why should we force that on a population that is not typically, statistically suffered from adverse outcomes of COVID?
Yeah.
Why should we be doing that?
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
And if you really listen to the message, and this is one of the things that's so intriguing to me, Susan, which really I think puts a bow on the fact that there is a push, right, to what they're doing. Because when you listen to the message of people like Bobby or others that are talking about this, they're not saying that this particularly is all bad or all good. They're talking about the idea of like having their own choice. You have people talking about women and abortions, talking about choice,
My body, my choice.
my body, my choice. But when it comes to these other things, it's like if you don't do it, you're going to be socially outcast. It doesn't make any sense.
That was the whole platform during COVID.
Yeah.
It's like, where's my body, my choice now? What happened to that?
Exactly.
That was like shoved down our throats for years.
Yeah.
And now that's suddenly not a thing. And it's interesting. The same people who were shouting my body, my choice were the ones who were shouting, put your mask on.
Exactly.
What? You're killing us. I went hiking in Malibu during COVID, hiking outdoors. And we were on the path with my kids and walking. And these two people with their mask hiking ran up to us and we're calling the police on you.
And you're probably like 30 feet away from them.
I said,
they
what
gotta
do
come
you
to you.
do? Please, I would love to see what the officer would think about your logic right now. But thank you. If you're afraid, we'll walk this way. It's okay. I'm sorry you're so afraid. I actually felt bad for them. I felt like, wow, these people are like not using common sense. Their brains have been like rewired in the wrong way. You're outside in fresh air, far away from us, and you're going to yell hysterically and call the police? Anyway, I digress. It was a bad time. Hopefully we can erase that from our history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild times. But
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know what we were on. We were talking about Vitamina, I think.
Yeah, let's jump in. I want to transition a little bit and talk about, so yes, you're that is what you're doing. Let's talk about the kind of impetus that caused you to get there. What was some of the idea of where, and obviously we'll talk about what it is and how it works, but what's the impetus of kind of background of that?
Well, my late husband had a lot of health issues. And, I knew instinctively that what he was taking, which were about 30 different pharmaceutical pills, and the doctors, every time I said...
So he was taking
a lot.
Medical advice.
He was taking medical advice from very good doctors, no less, like the best doctors. And, oh no, you don't give him that. Like, don't give him don't give him turmeric because that could, thin his blood. I said, but maybe we could actually transition him off the blood thinner onto turmeric versus this. Absolutely not.
Wow.
Like it was, and I was like, wow, this is interesting that there's known products in nature that will help you overcome your illnesses or at least make the symptoms better. And a lot of doctors, really well-known doctors, did not want to look at that. They just kept saying, stick to the pharmaceuticals. So it actually just...
Did you find any doctors that you felt
many,
like there were a few?
There were many that were conventional doctors that had turned to more functional alternative methods because they saw the light. They saw, wow, big pharma is pushing this on us, but meanwhile we could do this and does not cause all the side effects that this big pharma product does. So why wouldn't we experiment? And many doctors did, and I did in LA particularly where we were living. There were some great doctors that were open to that, and so that was good. But my company really was born out of a need to make supplements easy for people because I found in, speaking to people all these years, everyone kind of associates me to like health and wellness. They always have. When they're sick or they have, my mom just got diagnosed with this or what everyone calls me. What do you think? What should they take? So I decided, well, I should really start a company to do this. And it's not because I wanted to profit from it, but it was more just to streamline my knowledge onto a platform that people could benefit from. Because I really made no money for my company. I'm right now reformulating my supplements, but it was more to help people and to get vitamins at a low cost in an easy format. So what I did was I created a way to I went onto my website. We had a drop-down menu and you could actually pick the supplements you wanted to take every day based on your blood work or whatever someone's told you, or your doctor said, hey, you need to take A, D, K, whatever. And so you go onto my site and you do a drop-down menu and you build your own pack. So when you build your pack, every month you get a box with 30 sachets, one for every day, which would make it very easy. You just open your sachets and you take it. You didn't have to think twice about all the bottles and let me pack, all my little, Ziploc bags to go travel, which was really where it was born out of.
Yeah.
I was like, how is it possible that I have to take all these 30 bottles that I take every day in my suitcase or make these little, Ziploc bags?
It's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
Super inconvenient.
Yeah.
So to get someone who's not accustomed to taking supplements, I did it because I've always done it, but someone who's new to that, I thought, I'm going to make this easier for them to make, easier to get into the supplement world. So that's where my company started. Now I've shifted a little bit because you're gonna be shocked at this statistic. Only 32% of the population can swallow vitamins.
I'm not good at it.
See, you're
By the
one
way,
of the
yeah, I mean, these pills that are decent size, it's like,
you're one of the
like, give me the gummies.
you're one of the 68% that can't. So
I can swallow a piece of steak, great. Yeah.
yeah, I know. Isn't that funny?
It's weird.
It is weird, but it's a really common thing. And the most of the population who needs vitamins the most or are deficient in supplements or nutrients are the older people and younger people, believe it or not. And those are the ones who can't swallow. So I said, let me figure out another way to make it easy. So we're developing sprays.
I love that.
Yeah, we've actually developed them. They're
Sprays for your skin?
no, under your tongue.
Okay.
But they're sublingual sprays. The delivery is amazing. You don't have all the fillers that you have in a vitamin pill.
Yeah.
And, it's more palatable for older people and younger people because it tastes great.
That's wonderful.
Spray in your mouth.
Yeah, and you're done.
Yeah.
Is it once a day, twice a day?
Once a day.
Once a day. And is
Yeah.
that available now?
And not yet. It's going to be coming very soon.
I love that. So let me ask you this. In your thought, somebody is in a place where they're saying, hey, I'm deficient in X, Y, or Z. First off, you got to get tested to know what that is, right? And then secondly, because I think a lot of people, there's so many ads that we see on social media and all kinds of other things talking about get this, get this, get this, get this. And it can be confusing in a lot of ways to know really what do you want, what do you need, more than just what you want, what do you actually need, right? And then fulfill that need. I love the idea of the spray. I'm a big fan. I'll be a part of that.
Good.
Yeah.
I'd love to give you some.
For sure.
Well, I think in addition to affording parents the ability to do a swab to check the genetics of their baby when they're born, I think everyone should, maybe not every year, but every 2 or 3 years, be given the opportunity, instead of, how they give you wellness bonuses with insurance companies, they should allow you to do a micronutrient test. You should not have to pay for that out of pocket. And the way it is now, I think almost every insurance company makes you pay for that. If you really want to do a comprehensive one, not just the typical vitamin D and, a couple other things they test for, but to do a comprehensive micronutrient test to see where you're deficient. That should be paid for by the government.
Why do you think insurance companies and governmental programs as a whole, and maybe it's just misinformation or bad information or just kind of keep doing the same thing? You remember, it's like the old story of the young bride that got her pan out and she was cutting the ham and she cut a part of the ham off and put it in the pan and she said, "Why do you do that?" And she's like, "I don't know. That's what my mom did." And then she asked her mom, "Why do you do that?" "Because that's what my mom did." And then she asked her grandma, and she's like, "Grandma, why do you do that?" She's like, "Because I had a small pan." So it's like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Let's think about this.
Well, why aren't we doing this?
Exactly.
Why aren't we?
Why do you think there's no, I mean, you're seeing now they're starting to pay for maybe gym memberships and things like that. That's a start in the right direction, which is great.
Right.
But why do you think as a whole there hasn't been adoption?
Do they really want to make America healthy?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's this question I ask all the time.
Yeah.
Do big corporations and the big machines that run our country, do they really want to make us healthy?
Right.
Because right now we're kind of trapped in this whole, cycle of illness, or disease. You're not healthy, and it keeps people in a low level. Not
submissive.
There you go. I know.
Yeah, they're not. No, it's true. You're not operating at full capacity, and so therefore
you're easier to control.
Right.
We saw that during COVID. If you can't use fear every day, you can use other things. Why not make people relying on the government? And where's the nuclear family? Where are the kids?
Yeah.
There's no more kids, right? If you start having, well, that's another whole conversation.
Yeah. Well, but no, these are all valid things, and it's things that
they're affecting our health.
They're affecting our health. That's the point. And I think people need to start, or if they haven't yet, in different capacities, step back and really say, you know what is actually happening here? I mean, I love the idea that, in James, it talks about life is like a vapor, here today and gone tomorrow. So when we really step back, you're 55, I'm 47, I'll be 48 in September. And I think about this in life. I think, I'm hopefully halfway through. I don't know. But I'm in a situation where I'm like, I want to live strong the second half.
Of course.
And take knowledge that I've learned, insight that I've learned, apply it, but then add significant value to many out there, even beyond what we've done. That's the goal. Dennis Waitley said, it's my goal in life is to plant shade trees under which I'll never sit. I love that philosophy, which is exactly what you're talking about here. It's the idea of paying attention to your body so you can be the greatest impact to other people, right?
Right. I fundamentally do it. I originally started doing this and explaining to friends who were really fighting me on the whole, why do you do all this stuff? And that's ridiculous. And I would say to them, I'm not doing it for myself.
Right.
I'm doing it so I don't have to be a pain to my kids. Because ultimately, they're the ones who are going to have to take care of me.
Right.
Why do they, I don't want to be in a,
Right.
not to say anything wrong with a wheelchair, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be like having them have to take care of me because I'm sick or this, or I can't do things for myself. I'm doing it because I love my kids.
Right. And that doesn't mean you can avoid everything, but at least you're in a place where you're doing what you know you can
Right.
along the way.
To try to live a healthier life, the second half, which is usually when it gets rocky.
That's right. So tell me about the sprays. What does that look like? Time frame? How making sure that people can kind of get the right nutrients that they need. How do you see all that kind of coming together?
I think in the next couple months we'll have that finalized. We're just going through a couple little, things that you do in companies, complications, but it's all going to come out really well in the next couple months. And then I'm going to continue to do my educational series and continue to talk and try to get people.
And what does that look like?
Well, I've done podcasts a lot I've invited a lot of really well-known doctors and spiritual guides and just anyone in the health industry that I feel has made a difference. I've invited them on my show. I have not published all of them yet because I was in a period of time the past year that's been a little complicated, but we'll be doing that, kicking that off shortly. So yeah,
That's
very exciting.
awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about your involvement now moving forward as you see the MAHA movement, your company, where things are going. What are you hopeful for?
Well, I hope Bobby continues to do what he's doing, which is being fearless and changing things that needed to be changed for years. He's really one of the most courageous people and intelligent people I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people in my life. He's really extraordinary. So if he's allowed or able to, within the constraints of the government, to do what he has planned, we're going to have a really good situation. So I'll continue to support him. I'll do fundraisers for MAHA and all of his initiatives, because I believe that he's on to making America healthy, truly.
And he's willing to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
And take the risk for it.
Exactly.
Which is a wonderful thing.
It is. He's always been.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier is about the consistency. Let me ask you this question. In relation to people, I kind of want to land the plane with this thought and give you the idea to talk about this. If you were to look at someone out there and they're evaluating their life and they're evaluating where they're at, right? Obviously, taking nutrients is important, but what would 2 or 3 things that you would say about really having a healthy ride on this journey called life? What are some things that you would recommend from your experience of upbringing, what you know, who you've met, what you've seen in your own personal life and others? What would you recommend others?
Keep moving, moving forward, whether it be walking, any sort of exercise. You have to keep your body in motion. Body in motion stays in motion. You start sitting down. I watched it happen with my late husband. He just did not move anymore, and his body ultimately did not move anymore. That was it. So staying active is super important. Keeping your mind active, whether it be, even doing crossword puzzles or interacting or learning something new. We should always be learning every day. I mean, our brain is a muscle. If we're not exercising it, it'll atrophy, just like your arm muscles would. So keeping your mind, your body active, and then the spirituality component is important to me. I think it's really important to connect with whatever you believe in, God, the universe, and really reset, spend a few moments every day just kind of resetting yourself and realizing what you're grateful for. Gratitude is so important. Realizing what you're grateful for, and then just, entering your day with that feeling of gratitude and resetting your nervous system. So that's what I do. In relation to, I just want to integrate on the second thing that you said as far as your mind moving. I think a lot of times people kind of replace their growth with entertainment. True.
We live in a culture of entertainment, where we're just, whether it be videos or movies or whatever it is.
Ask me the last movie I watched.
What's the last movie you watched?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I haven't.
Yeah.
It's like always the bane of my existence. Everyone's like, well, you don't watch TV. And I'm like, I know. I just find so many other things to do. Like I can't justify sitting there. I did see Mission Impossible the other day. I take that back. I went with my kids to see that. It was good, but it was 3 hours long. And I just could not sit in a chair for 3 hours.
That's a long time.
I had to get up twice and walk down the hallway because I was just like, I can't believe I was spending 3 hours watching a movie. It was a lot. But
so you got your fill for like the next 20 years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I don't watch. To your point, yeah, we have replaced substance with entertainment, and that's sad. We should be spending time learning things. My kids watch TV, but they like watch Discovery Channel, and they watch, Nick, my son, he watches like history, and you could ask him anything about any time frame and he'll tell you.
Learning about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you're getting something out of it. You're actually absorbing something that's good for you. Knowledge is empowering. Why would you not do that versus just, watching some fake, actors on TV
that are creating something that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. Exactly.
Yeah. So where do people find out about what you're doing? Your podcast,
my website, vitamina.com, on social media, Vitamina Official. We will start launching more videos again. We kind of took a pause while we were in this whole reformulation phase, but we will be definitely doing that very soon in the next month or two. So very excited. Yeah, jumping on the MAHA bandwagon. I've been saying this for years. I've been saying MAHA, not MAHA, the acronym. I just say we need to make America healthy again. Like that's been my mantra. In fact, I should have brought you hats. I have hats that say that with my company name. But
next time we'll get a hat.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. And then just surrounding myself with animals. My passion for animals too. So I have to put that plug in. Big Dog Ranch Rescue.
They're a great place. Lori's doing a great job.
She is, and a dog will always calm your nervous system.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Petting a dog. Even the American Heart Association, which I'm involved with them.
That's interesting when you think about that.
Yeah, no.
So that's a fourth. We're going to add that in as a fourth.
That's true. Let's add that in.
Get
a pet.
Yeah.
It does really, especially if you're living alone. I recommend that anyone who's living alone should have an animal. I mean, whether you have cat or dog, whatever it may be. I happen to like dogs a little bit more. But American Heart Association actually put that now as one of their ways to calm your nervous system is petting a dog. It actually lowers your heart rate. There's so many benefits of pet ownership, and it also forces you to get out and take walks.
Yeah. And it's responsibility.
It is.
It gives you something to do.
Purpose.
Yeah,
because we all need
exactly.
purpose in life.
We do need
especially
purpose.
Someone who's older, maybe living alone. They need a purpose in life, and why not get a dog? We have so many dogs in our shelters across the nation, not just here. We have 1,000 dogs here.
Wow.
In Palm Beach that need homes. And so it's a great opportunity.
They need good families.
They need good families or a good person to love. So what better opportunity to make yourself healthier and make a dog happy?
Yeah. I love it. Big Dog Ranch. Well, Susan, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and talking about your story, talking about your journey, juicing every day. You hopefully inspired many, I'm sure, as they do that, but I appreciate you sharing your thoughts.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, as we had conversation there, just my encouragement to you as always is be intentional. It's great to listen to information. It's great to hear things that might be different or new. I'm going to be a big fan of the sprays when they come out, but just be thinking about the idea of what can I take from this? And more importantly, what can I apply to my life, right? Knowledge is great, but it's not power. It's the application of knowledge is where the power comes from. You can walk into any room and it has power to the switch. And if the lights aren't off, if you don't flip it on, the lights are not going to shine. So you have to take steps to actually make changes in your life. That's the goal. Listen, be intentional, live well, invest well in your health and in your life. Talk to you next time.